Hi, I'm Danny Dorman, and this is my Introduction and Critical Analysis for AEP 880. So some personal highlights. I've been teaching for 5 years, 3 in first grade and 2 in third grade, and I will be staying in third grade this coming year. I graduated from Tabor College in 2017. I'm married and we have 2 little boys and another one on the way in the next couple of weeks. It is a small rural community with 2 classes for each grade level, with about 15 to 20 kids in each class, just depending on the class. My hobbies include following my boys around, which is also my husband and his coaching. He coaches basketball and baseball, and we both enjoy golfing during the summer, and so that has just recently started up. Reading when I have time, and then just being outside or hanging out with my family and friends. My overall critical analysis for the resources that were provided for us is just that a culturally diverse school, I think a lot of us think about, especially in the teaching profession, but I think that there is more levels than we think about. When we think about being diverse, we just think about having many cultures and many different kinds of people around, but I think that there is a lot more to that, and just making sure that we're servicing each student to the best of our abilities. And not only are we working with students, but we're also working with the adults and the community, and then showing the acceptance of these cultures and making sure that we are handling situations in the correct ways, just so that we are not offending anyone. So a positive school culture. To me, a positive school culture is just an overall happy, welcoming environment where people want to go and kids want to be. And so when reading through these articles, this one quote stuck out to me when talking about a positive school culture. On the flip side, brain development flourishes when children feel emotionally and physically safe, when they know they have adults who care about them, and when they are challenged in their learning. And so, to me, this can be seen in many classrooms just based on a student that we might know has been bullied or is getting bullied, and that's something that we're working on. Or if you have a student in your class that you just know the home environment or the place where they go after school is not the best, and just that they're worried about that constantly. And so just being able to make sure that they know they're loved and they're safe when they are with you, so that all they have to worry about is school. And then testing students on a social emotional level. And so this is something that my school has been doing the last couple of years, and so I really felt like that stuck out to me, because it gives the kids a certain word like hope for the whole month. And we have a ton of resources, and we talk about it, and we do activities with it, and then at the end of the month, they talk about what kind of hope they have in their life, or how they might see that word in the things around them. And so just making sure that they know what the words mean, but also how they could see them in their everyday lives. And so I feel like that is a very good way to positively impact our kids as well. Another thing would be creating consistent systems in our schools. I feel like there could be so much switching up of procedures in schools that we don't really give them a chance to stick, or really give them a chance to work before we switch it up. And so just giving some new systems a chance to really make an impact in our schools would be another good way to impact the school culture positively. And I know in schools we talk about personalizing relationships and really connecting with the people around us, but I also think that helping motivate students and staff in a more personalized way can help create a better work ethic all around. And so I felt like that was a very good tip from that article as well. And then one thing that I wasn't sure I really agreed with was using school data to set a goal. I just feel like depending on how this is done, it can be a good thing or it can cause lots of stress. And so one thing that came to mind when thinking about this was state assessments. And so I just know how stressed out the teachers in my school get when those start to come around. And so I think that just depending on how your school district or the state handles it could determine if that is creating a positive culture in your school or a negative culture in your school. And so it just kind of depends on how that is done and how it is pushed. Okay, an inclusive environment. I think the biggest thing that we feel with this is just making sure that students feel welcome and students want to come and they're not separated out based on any one particular thing. And so while we all worry about the students, this article in our resources for this module also talks about the staff and making sure all the staff is included and that the staff at the school is working together. And I feel like this is a very important thing that a lot of schools probably need to work on, because you have your classroom teachers, and then you have your specials teachers, and then you have your paras and support staff and your janitors and your security officers for some schools, and just all these different people that come together each day to make sure this school is this great environment for the kids. And those people can at times not all feel included and not all feel important and those sorts of things. And so I think that making sure that everyone is included and feeling as though they are welcome and helpful to the school environment is a big deal, and probably something that a lot of schools need to think about a little bit more. And then also on one of the articles there was a list of tips, but it was not just a bulleted list. Each section you could click on to have their own separate article, and so it wasn't just a two-step process, but it was a full-on article that I could go if I needed help with inclusion in my classroom. And so that was something that I thought was nice, just being able to have those kinds of resources to make sure that I'm doing all that I can, or if I get stuck on something, I have something to turn to. An equitable school, I feel like I had an understanding of what that would look like, and then when I started reading articles about it, it just kind of opened up a whole nother level for me. And so this quote really made me start thinking about that next level. And it says, "In a school culture of equity, diversity becomes the norm, not the exception. And excellence becomes the norm for all, not the exception for a few." And so I feel like the first part of that quote, when diversity becomes the norm, is something that we all just think about, and it's just all like the basic level of an equitable school culture. But when it comes to talking about excellence being the exception, or being the norm, not the exception, I think that is the part where not as many people think about it. And so that was something that really stuck out for me to strive for and to think about a little bit more going into next school year. And then when it comes to just the diversity side and making sure that the cultures are all represented and they're all feeling welcome in an inclusive school, I felt like one big thing that was brought up in one of the articles was using the same language in regards to all of these things. So you have all sorts of different cultures and people think about them all in a different way, and just making sure that your school has the same mission and using the same language will help that a lot to make sure that there is no negativity or no confusion when it comes to that sort of thing. A responsive school, I think, is something that I try and think about the most often, just because I want to make sure that I am giving all of my students in my classroom the things that they need and in the right ways that they need it. And so this article, written in 2005, might be a few years old, but I still feel like all of the things that were listed in this article are things that we can still work on, especially when it comes to just the response and thinking times of different cultures and kids growing up in different environments. And then also making sure that our curriculums are culturally diverse and bringing that responsive school culture as well. And I was really excited about this because I felt like our new reading series that we are getting this year is very culturally diverse and helping kids to learn those kinds of things. And so I was really excited about reading with that as well. And then just the more that I read, the more interested I was, because another article talked about the fact that students of color will make up 56% of the school's populations nationwide by 2024. And so if everything holds up from that study, I just think that's very intriguing, and it's just going to show why learning all of these things is important. And then not only does a responsive school work for the kids, but they also work for the adults and for the community. And so I think that's also important that we make sure we're also looking in that direction as well. So my reflection would be that overall, there are plenty of things that I've seen and that our school has began working on. And while we could still do things a lot better, I think that we're moving in a good direction. Positively, we have been looking at doing more evening classes for the adults in our district, just based on needs that have been shown in our community. And while some of those things have been put on hold a little bit with COVID, we're finally being able to start some of that up again. And so that has become more of a central conversation. And then we're also working on being more inclusive. So in our third grade rooms, we teach reading in smaller groups. And so we have included our special education students into our smaller groups before they are pulled out, so that they are not only getting that extra teaching that they need, but they're also still being included in with their peers and with their grade level content that we are working through as well. And so having an equitable school culture is something that we have talked about and that we're striving for, but I feel like we could do better. Just creating that positive environment and rewarding them and encouraging them for making those gains. And then finally, again, working with our parents in the community. Some of those classes that we had talked about were more of a life skills, reading and math skills, and then other ways that they can get help if they are needed. And so I think that those are all important things that some of our parents just aren't really sure about some of those things. And so giving them an opportunity to learn is something that we can help with. And then, again, while there are plenty of things that we are working on to make better for our students, I still think that there are more than enough things that we can continue to work on in order to make our school a responsive school and a better for our students. And while the research has given me many ideas I can bring back, there are also things that we have talked about that were brought up in the research, and so